today. UFC 324 is in the books, and we now have a new lightweight interim champion of the world, and his name is Justin Gaethje. Also, what about Sugar Sean O'Malley? Did he rebound into a title shot against Petr Yan? What about Umar Nurmagomedov? Where does he stand in the pecking order to challenge Petr Yan? And then what about Thug Rose versus Natty Ice, Ilia Silva? How did you have that fight going? What did you think? And a few other fights that we frankly didn't think were going to go down that way. All of this and more on today's episode of Matter of Fact MMA. What's up? What's happening? Let's go. What's up, guys? We right back at it. We right back with it. It's your boy Matt, and we're here to go ahead and talk about UFC 324. It went down last weekend, T-Mobile Arena, during the major snowstorm / blizzard, Arctic winds, the vortex is going over the U.S. It's crazy right now. All right? That's why your boy's coming to you a little bit late with this coverage from over the weekend, because we been snowed in. Just left the house the first time yesterday. Holla at me. Nevertheless, UFC, first show, Paramount. This is what I'll say right off. Few takeaways right away. They're going to have to iron out the pacing. I know it was the first card. The pacing was like watching a Jake Paul fight on Netflix, where it's like in between bouts, you got to sit through 48 minutes of the panel talking, then some other desk talking, then we got to go to video footage, then we got to talk about who's their favorite artist that they listen to, and who the fighters respect, what they eat, their personal chef. We don't need to know all that, alright? That ain't the UFC's brand. That might work well in boxing and celebrity boxing, but that ain't what we need to know as real UFC fans, right? So they're going to have to iron out that pacing, you know what I'm saying? They're going to have to iron out just the whole structure of the show. But I'm going to give them credit. I'm going to give them their time. I definitely think they'll be able to pull this off. Another shout out. Shout out to Dominic Cruz, who they announced will be inducted into the UFC Hall of Fame this year in 2026. Shout out to him. That's not really far-fetched. We all knew when he retired last year that this was coming. But shout out to Dominic Cruz. He finally gets that moment, that recognition. So we'll definitely enjoy that later on in the year. Another takeaway. What was up with the whole Blink-182 and Travis Barker? All right, I saw him interviewing Travis Barker, and he's trying to say this. He's trying to say that. Look, dude. Look, man. Get Travis Barker and his drumsticks and his drum set out my octagon. Out my octagon. You know what I'm saying? Get this homie up out of there, bro. No disrespect to him. Shout out to his music. Shout out to everything. But, bro, get him up out of there, bro. We trying to get to these fights. That's another thing they're going to iron out. MMA fans, we don't care about that side of the pageantry, about that side of the presentation, right? You know, we don't mind if Sinead O'Connor wanted to walk Connor out. We was cool with that. You know what I'm saying? But some things we just like, look, we don't need this. We don't need Travis Barker and 2 drumsticks in the middle of the octagon. So, I'm sure they'll iron all that out. That was just the first show. They got to get a few first type things out the way. Now, let's get into the card. Let's start out with the main event. I had totally called this one wrong. Totally called this one wrong. I had Paddy Pimblett going into this, and within minutes of this fight, I'm watching this, and I realized, yeah, you totally got this wrong. Because what I feel like we see a lot with our veteran fighters, like your Justin Gaethjes of the world, is you see them have some performances where they don't quite look like what you feel like they should look like. Does that make sense? They don't quite do as well in a fight, a previous fight, that you thought that they would have done well in, right? So then when you're thinking about more of a rookie fighter and they're about to step in the octagon with him, and how this rookie's been running through everybody. One thing that you do miss, and I try not to miss it, but I do on a lot of fights, and I did on this one, is that strength of schedule. Who have they already fought? Who have they already beaten? Now, of course, Justin Gaethje's is a who's who, which was the argument that I made before this. But I should have put more into who Paddy has already beaten and how that would weigh or stack up, because it did not weigh or stack up. This was a 5-round drubbing. You know what I'm saying? This was Justin Gaethje going out there. This was Justin Gaethje getting word that the bully that had been stealing his little brother's lunch money every day at lunch while he had been away from school was at the food court in the mall. And he went in there ready to beat the man from the Buckle to Aeropostale over to the Great American Cookie, and then back to the Chinese food place. You know what I'm saying? He was out here trying to get that lunch money back, and that was the way he beat Paddy Pimblett. And this is one thing I will say. That wasn't prime Justin Gaethje, and I'm not speaking about his age or being in the latter part of his career. You could tell, as we all speculated, that homie probably did have staph, or homie probably had been on antibiotics for like the last 10 days related to staph. Because that was a Gaethje in which, in my opinion, got fatigued a lot quicker than we've seen in the past. Although he just pushed through it, I feel like that was a Gaethje. You could tell by the look of his body, he wasn't as toned as we've seen him in previous fights. And in my opinion, I think something was going on there with the man's health, probably related to that whole gaping wound that they tried to cover up with a Band-Aid on the side of his neck. You know what I'm saying? Nevertheless, man, Justin Gaethje, shout out to him, respect to him. He went out there, he did his thing, and he put it on Paddy. And another thing I didn't really get is I don't understand. I know he attempted a few times, but it just didn't seem like Pimblett's game plan was to really get this to the floor, get this to the ground, where he would have an advantage over Justin. And I know he made the attempt a few times, but for the life of me, I don't know what his crew came up with as far as a game plan. Because it looked like their game plan was to go out there and go toe-to-toe on the feet with Justin Gaethje, which is not bright. It's not smart. It's low IQ. It's low vibration. It's low oil. It's check the engine light is on. You know what I'm saying? That didn't make any sense to me. But you know, to each is his own. Paddy went up there, got his brakes, got the whole brakes beat off of him. The whole chassis was beat off of him. The whole engine fell out the front of the car. All of that was beat off of this man, right? Because this was like, I mean, after a while, you were just marveling at the fact that Paddy could even stand upright. And maybe there is something to Scousers don't get knocked out, because Justin Gaethje tried to knock that Scouser out, and that Scouser kept living. I was like, wow, what is in the cranium of a Scouser? You can't knock this man out. You trying to rattle him? He could not rattle him. Nevertheless, man, Justin Gaethje goes out there, he gets the win. More than likely, the rumblings, we're probably going to see him versus Ilia Topuria, maybe even at the White House, to go ahead and unify and make an undisputed lightweight champion. We will see, but shout out to Justin Gaethje, he moves forward. Shout out to Paddy Pimblett, no need to hang his head, because he proved that he definitely belongs in the realm of toughness right there in the main event spot. He's got a few things to iron out as far as his skill set, few things, his coaches, his team's got a few things to iron out as far as a game plan. But shout out to him nevertheless. How about the co-main event? We saw Sugar Sean O'Malley go out there and defeat a unanimous 3-round decision against Song Yadong. You know, this fight definitely wasn't as action-packed as, you know, a lot of people were touting. I didn't really think that it would be, honestly. I kind of thought Sean was going to go out there and style on him on the feet. That's sort of what happened. He stayed a step ahead of Song on the feet the entire fight, but he never really styled on him. And I think what you saw in the first round was a timid Sean O'Malley, almost like he didn't really know if he still had it. And then in the second round, you saw him begin to believe that he could still do this. By the very end of the third round, you saw Sugar Sean beginning to style. He didn't style, but he began to style. It was almost like by that third round, he realized, okay, I'm still Sean O'Malley. I can still go out here and do this. So shout out to him. He wins that fight. It wasn't an action-packed fight. He didn't finish Song. So there's a lot of questions about what's next there against Petr Yan. Looking at that landscape, I would say that Sugar Sean O'Malley is right there. He's in the catbird seat. He's in control. I feel like he will get the next title shot against Petr Yan. Because of another fight on this card, Umar Nurmagomedov goes out there against a Deiveson Figueiredo that seemed prepared, but he just doesn't seem like he's got that fire left in him, right? And in my opinion, I just think at this point, Deiveson really needs to look to retire. Because it's not that, in my opinion, that he can't go anymore. I just feel like he doesn't have that fire any longer, that burning desire to go out there and win these fights. There were moments where it seemed like he, not necessarily that he could have capitalized on anything Umar did incorrect, because Umar didn't really do much incorrectly. But it just didn't seem, that wasn't the Figgy Smalls of old. That, especially not the one from flyweight that we seen out there like a marauder, in the words of Joe Rogan. He was a marauder. He did not have that, bro. He just wasn't going out there and doing that. So it seemed like he was definitely missing a step, and I think that step was a desire. So Umar gets the win, but the reason why I'm saying Sean is definitely in the lead, I believe, to get the title shot against Petr Yan until Merab comes back, is I just feel like Umar, you had the opportunity and you coasted to a win. You know what I'm saying? You coasted to a win, and that just wasn't the way to do that, man. That wasn't the way. I get it. You know, you in the lead. You know, in wrestling in your division, I get it. You know, Makhachev is in the lead at 170. I get it, bro. We and they're not under the same team, but we watch Hamzat at middleweight do his thing. But one thing that these wrestlers got to realize, man, you need to tenaciously approach this fight. You know what I'm saying? You need to be tenacious with your grappling and your wrestling. If you want to out-wrestle and out-grapple everybody, that's cool, man. Do your thing. But you need to be aggressive about it. That's one thing that the GOAT, and I'm not saying he's the GOAT of all time, period, but I'm just saying in general, when you talk about him, call him GOAT. We talking about Khabib Nurmagomedov. Khabib would ferociously and viciously, unless he was injured or unless he was compromised due to his weight cut, he would aggressively, ferociously attack these men on the ground in these wrestling and grappling positions to where you just saw them melt and get overwhelmed. Whereas sometimes, like with this Umar fight, I never felt like Deiveson was overwhelmed. He just didn't feel like being in there. And he didn't have that fight. And Umar was just settling the coast. Where I felt like you should have went for the finish so you could have edged out Sean O'Malley to fight Petr Yan for the belt. So in my opinion, whenever Merab comes back, he's getting a rematch for the championship. But let's say Merab takes some more time off. It's got to be Sean O'Malley, then it's Umar. That's just what it is, bro. And that's on Umar. You had your opportunity because Deiveson was right for the picking. Deiveson was not trying to be in there with you much past the first 2 or 3 minutes of that fight. So, you know I skipped ahead to the Umar fight, but that's what that was. How about Waldo Cortez Acosta goes out there and defeats TKO, defeats Derek Lewis. You know, one thing about Derek Lewis, bro, as I spoke about before this fight, man, you never know. Like, when you see Derek Lewis out there and he doesn't look like himself, Man, Derek Lewis is good for hiding an injury, for hiding an illness, and still stepping in the octagon. You know what I'm saying? Because he's got that, that Hiroshima, that nuclear bomb in his right hand and also in his left hand. So sometimes I believe he goes in there compromised because he knows if I hit you, I might be able to get you out there early in the first or second round. And that wasn't going to happen in this. And Waldo Cortez Acosta continues, as I've said multiple times on this channel, even though I picked against him, the fan in me picked Derek Lewis, as I've said multiple times, Waldo Cortez Acosta is the heavyweight that we need in the heavyweight division. He don't care if he gets poked in the eyes. He don't care about injuries. He don't care about short notice. He don't really care who the opponent is. He's willing, ready, and able to go out there and put on the fights that we need at heavyweight. Waldo Cortez Acosta, I am now firmly in his corner from here on throughout the rest of his career, and I want him to get a title shot against week A Tom Aspinall, because Tom Aspinall is struggling right now, and I'm kind of, Tom Aspinall gonna make me side with Dana when it comes to get back in the octagon. You know what I'm saying? I know he got to have one eye surgery, two eye surgeries, getting his eyes checked. They doing an oil check on his eyes. They put the dipstick in. Okay, but still, bro. Tom, we need you, bro. No disrespect. I know you really got injured and F-Zero gone, but we need you back, man. Because we got guys like Waldo Cortez Acosta. They lighten it up. We need you back, Tom. Get well soon. Anyway, Waldo goes out there. He beats Derek Lewis. How about Natalia Silva? Natty Ice goes out there, gets a 3-round decision over Thug Rose Namajunas. Here's the thing. I had Rose winning this fight 2-1. I picked Natty Ice to win the fight, but when I watched this fight, I felt like Rose won this 2-1. But nevertheless, I think it was a little cooking right there. This ain't the same Rose. And one thing about this, I will say, man, Rose loses these fights, and it's Rose's fault, bro, because Rose had been controlling Natalia Silva and keeping her at bay throughout this entire fight, bro. And I feel like that Rose went out there in that 3rd round and was banking on she had won the first 2. And so she was just willing to coast through that. And I don't know why Rose is built like that. I really don't know why. There was like a point in her career where she was like, I don't really need to pour on the damage. I can coast to the win. No, you can't. No, you can't coast to the win, as you saw, and you lost to Natalia Silva. You could have went out there, in my opinion, and put forth a little bit more effort in that 3rd round and definitely won that decision. So, in my opinion, I know you might say the judges robbed her and everything. I feel like this was on Rose. I feel like Rose and Dusty Pat Barry was sitting over in the corner, banking on she had won the first 2 rounds, and Rose went out there and didn't put forth much of an effort in that 3rd, and you get what you get. How about Arnold Allen versus Jean Silva? This was a banger. This was a war back and forth, but I think the spirit, the overall just berserker rage that exists inside of Jean Silva, it just outdid Arnold Allen. Arnold Allen, though, he was putting it, he had his hands together. He was doing his thing in that 1st round. He was definitely game. And he didn't get blown out in this fight. In my opinion, I think it was up for grabs all the way through a certain point of the 3rd round in which Jean Silva started pouring on the damage. But shout out to Arnold Allen. Nothing to hang your head on over this one. It was a great fight, but Jean Silva is just a madman, and it's hard to contain him once he gets going. He's like a small snowball rolling down a hill that keeps getting larger and larger, and he's hard to contain. You know what I'm saying? So shout out to Jean Silva. He goes out there and gets the win. No one saw Atiba Gauthier go into a 3-round unanimous decision over Andre Puyaev, but that's what happened. I did not see Nikita Krylov bouncing back against Modestas Bukauskas, but that's what we saw. Alex Perez versus Charles Johnson. I did not see Alex Perez finishing Charles Johnson that easily, I might add. Did not see that. How about Josh Hockett versus Denzel Freeman? This was outstanding. This is the type of rapid, aggressive, just ferocious wrestling that I'm talking about, that Umar might want to look into. And I know Umar's a much better wrestler than Josh, but this is what I mean. Josh goes out there, aggressively attacks this man and gets him out of there the first round, and use wrestling at that to set up the striking to get him up out of there. What's wrong with that, Umar? You know what I'm saying? Anyway, then we had Adam Fugit go out there and get knocked out by Ty Miller. I mean, come on. Come on, man. When the first 30 seconds of that fight, you knew what was going to happen. So that was UFC 324. You know what I'm saying? It had some highlights and it had a few lowlights. It had a few, the lowlights were fights in which we thought were going to be more action-packed that weren't. But right now we got a new interim champion of the world. His name, lightweight champion of the world. His name is Justin Gaethje. In my opinion, Sugar Sean O'Malley is now the next contender for the bantamweight championship. And Natalia Silva, I guess you could say, punched her ticket to go out there and go ahead and face Valentina Shevchenko. If that's the way the UFC is going, that looks like that's the only way to go in that weight division. So, we will see what happens, man. Please like, subscribe, comment. Let me know what you think. Let me know your thoughts on UFC 324, the co-main event. You know, did you think that Rose got robbed in that fight against Natalia Silva? Let me know. And once again, I do want to thank you guys for joining me for another episode of Matter of Fact MMA. And I'll check you next time. Peace.